Welcome to the Manufacturing Masters Podcast with your host, Allison DeFord.
Everybody, we have with us today not only a man, a myth, and a legend, but a manufacturing unicorn. We are talking today to none other than my pal, my former podcasting co-host and counterpart, Ray Ziganto. For any of you that don't know Ray yet, you need to know him. You need to look him up on LinkedIn. He is driving positive impact in the manufacturing industry, and he's doing it at scale. He's currently doing that as the Partner Relations Manager for IMEC Illinois, one of my favorite MEPs in the United States. They are doing some incredible things. So if you are not already following what IMEC is doing, whether you are, in fact, in Illinois or not, I highly recommend that you follow them and see what they're up to. They do a lot of great webinars and they have amazing content. So Ray and I are going to jump in today and talk about the benefits of working with your local MEP. I know a lot of manufacturers aren't taking advantage of this resource. And let me tell you what, you should. Run, don't walk after listening to this episode, and you will just get so much out of working with your local MEP. It doesn't typically cost you anything, and the people are passionate and experienced and committed to helping you succeed. So join me today in this empowering and courageous conversation with my buddy, friend, and also expert on the Manufacturing Masters platform, Ray Ziganto. Everybody, here we go. Hey, everybody. Man, do we have an exciting episode for you today. This guest is very close to my heart, and many of you know him as the unicorn. I will explain that in a minute, but Ray Ziganto, welcome to the Manufacturing Masters podcast.
All right. So great to be here, Allison. Great to see you. This is awesome. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Ray and I were podcasting partners in crime on our podcast, MFG Out Loud. And we had a 2.5-year run. And really just the experience was amazing for both of us. And time and new work opportunities have caused us to have to go in some different directions. And so, but I'm super happy to have you here because this just feels like putting on a nice warm coat. And and we have so many exciting things to talk about. So today we're going to jump right in, get straight to the meat, and we're going to talk about MEPs and how your state MEP has your back, because I think a lot of manufacturers, in fact, I know this and you can back me up, they're not taking advantage of working with the MEP in their state, right?
Yep. I get it. I ran a business in the state of Illinois, and the prevailing attitude from ownership was, what do they know that we don't know? You know, for any trade organization, that was maybe not so unique to the culture I was in, because I bumped into it elsewhere. But there's also, and this could just be pride, where it's sometimes it's tough to admit you need some help, right? You know, with some things. And it's in the past, the ups and downs that happened in the economy, they were a little more forgiving. You know, they would sort themselves out. There was an expectation of reverting back to a familiar place. COVID kind of upended all of that, and the rate of change that manufacturers are facing now, it's manufacturing during and after COVID went into overdrive. There's a little bit of a backing down, but the rate of change going forward is continuing to accelerate. So that notion of, well, someday it'll slow down and we'll be able to focus on it, not going to happen. Not going to happen. So,
Well, and I want people listening to know the reason that you are the unicorn. I dubbed you this, I think, about 5 years ago when we first met through LinkedIn. Yeah. Love me some LinkedIn. Created some amazing lifelong relationships.
Yeah.
The reason you are the unicorn is that you have been a CEO of a manufacturer. You have been a consultant. You have done international work. You've done work internationally and are very well versed in that. And now you work with IMEC in Illinois. So now you're with an MEP. And the thing that makes you the unicorn, and the reason that I'm bringing this up, number one, you can see patterns that most people can't, at least based on all the people I've ever met. You were the first person that I ran into that actually understands the bridge, right? You're the bridge builder between sales, marketing, and operations. And just so clearly. And I want people listening to understand it's people like you, right? The magical unicorn that work at these MEPs.
Yeah.
So they have access to someone like you who's been in their shoes, who's worked with others, who's worked abroad, and who brings just this really vast amount of knowledge and experience, but you're so down to earth and you're so easy to work with and you're so capable of, a manufacturer can come and talk to you and in literally, I think within 60 seconds, you can look at them and say, here's what you need to do. Right?
It's a nice way of saying I'm old.
No.
The cool thing, and it's very kind of you to say it. I appreciate that, and I wear that moniker with great pride to this day. Thank you for that. The really cool thing that I saw coming to IMEC, and I'd shared this with Kurt Anderson and Damon when I was on their podcast. It was, I have had and continue to have an awesome career in manufacturing. There are aspects of it that are pretty unusual. The cool thing about coming to IMEC is if you put all 55 of us in a room, I could throw a rock and probably hit 30 people that have done stuff as cool or cooler, which to me is awesome. It's a humbling group to be around. We had a meeting this morning. We were hosted by the village of Maywood. A group of manufacturers come to talk about some things we're working on. My colleague that was there, Amy Clary, she's got a background. She'd worked in aerospace in California, back in Chicago, done all kinds of roles, front door to back door in manufacturing, large and small. And these are the people I get to hang out with every day. So when somebody in the audience has a question, if there's somebody from IMEC in the room, I got news for you. You're getting an answer, that you can take back, and it's going to work. And that to me is fun. That was it became my mission when I left running somebody else's business and was doing the consulting, and you and I were working together. The itch I needed to scratch was to figure out, how can I have as big a positive impact to manufacturing as possible? Right. And with IMEC, I found that home and that vehicle, and there are other like-minded people there that get up every morning and just want to help manufacturers, typically smaller ones, 2 or 3 employees to 200. We get in there every day and help them do stuff better, and we measure it and we show them, and they're excited about it, and we come back and do it again. So that's a bit of the journey.
Well, I love that. And I feel the same way, as you know. And I think that's what's exciting. I think a lot of small manufacturers, at least based on my experience, our experience of doing our other podcast, is that so many manufacturers are small. And I think it's really easy to get stuck in a vacuum, right? You're trying to think in a vacuum, work in a vacuum, and you feel alone. Yeah. And it is easy to feel, I don't know, I feel dumb because I need help. So I'm not going to ask for help. I'm going to figure this out on my own.
Mhm.
And I think the thing that I've recognized in working with MEPs and with the Manufacturing Masters platform, for example,
Mhm.
is that help is out there for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It is at your it's at your fingertips, and all
Yeah.
you have to do is reach out and say, hey, can you help me? And guess what, you'll get the help.
The
It's that
crazy
easy.
thing, I'm with you. There's a last mile problem, and it impacts a lot of different areas. I'm sure it's true in other industries. I've seen it up close and personal on the workforce side. There isn't a manufacturer that we talk to and we say, "Hey, what's keeping you awake at night?" And it's like workforce, workforce, and then workforce. How do I get more? How do I keep the ones I have? How do I train them? So there are so many things, so the manufacturers are panicked about that. The schools are trying as best they can at the high school, community college level, even the four-year universities, to put programs in place. They're trying to listen to manufacturing. What do you need? We'll train to that, to those skills and standards. And then it's getting the manufacturers to come in and take advantage of it. We had somebody at the Maywood event today that is working in a disadvantaged community that is, basically they're an HR firm, but kind of a community building firm. They take these folks and they work with them and they basically guarantee me, he goes, I got 10 people right now looking for jobs. And I almost started laughing. I'm like, are you kidding me? Because it's like, I could make 2 phone calls and get them jobs right now. There are people, manufacturers just dying for help. How come they don't know this exists?
Right.
So a lot of it is, it's relationships. It's still, and I'm from Chicago, so I know a guy,
Right.
so, but it's true. And a big part of what IMEC does, what our people in the field do, it's like, we'll have those conversations. We don't do everything. That's not our role, but we've got our ear to the ground because we're hearing a common set of problems. We don't produce the workers, but boy, we sure know where the sources are, and can make those connections. So, yeah, it's a last mile problem, and it's goes back to something you and I talked about before. The more people you talk to, the luckier you get. Start talking to
Yes.
people.
Isn't that amazing?
Know.
Well, I think
So,
that's one thing that I've definitely had great success with. You and I are living proof of that,
yeah.
and all the amazing people that we've connected with because we reached out to each other at one point and kind of said, I could use some help. So I wanted to ask you quickly,
Sure.
what are some of the resources that manufacturers should turn to their MEP for, can turn to their MEP for, that maybe they don't know exists?
Wow. It's everything. It's kind of like how everybody goes for information. Well, you go on to the website. Well, what are you going to find? White papers, webinars. I mean, we put out content like crazy.
Yes, and it's good.
We do a lot of events. We look to get into, communities. That's where we work with our partners, whether it's workforce, community colleges, economic development. In this case, the mayor of Maywood. I met at a networking event. And he says, you have to talk to my manufacturers. And I'm like, yes, I do. So there's an awful lot you can figure out online. Number one. The second thing, and I can't speak for all of them, but I assume it's the same way. Our regional managers, the people in the field that come in and engage with manufacturers on a day-to-day basis, we hire first based on their background and understanding of manufacturing, the depth of empathy that they bring to that. And really the last thing you look at is kind of any sort of sales discipline or experience. So when our folks come through the door, we come in from a place of service. And it's listening, and what are the challenges you're facing, because as an organization, we're very much a been there, done that. So whatever you're struggling with, number one, you're not alone. Number two, I guarantee you, we've got a resource that can help you. And what that person can do that you invite into your facility is have an informed conversation with you. Walk around And the business owner may very well say, my problem is this. If only I could solve this issue, when in reality that might be a reference pain. Our folks can sit down with you and say, I hear you, this is what we want to resolve, but if we just fix this and don't plan for this other thing, it's going to come back and bite you again. So let's take a holistic view. And that's not a trick to suck you into years and years of consulting. That's not it. Our goal is to help you make the best decision, solve the problems in the order they need to be solved, and at the very start, agree on what good looks like. And that's usually improved profitability, top line revenue growth, employee engagement. It's all that important stuff manufacturers worry about. So once, if you look online and you see that, hey, these people are talking my language, well, I encourage you to reach out, have a conversation. Nobody's going to hold you down and tickle you till you sign a contract. That's not how we roll.
Right.
We take a very long-term approach. We want to build rapport and relationships with manufacturers, and you don't do that by pitching them and selling them. You do that by helping them, and that's what we're here to do.
Exactly. Well, and I have seen the benefits firsthand. I know you guys have helped, I think it was just last year alone, create, and correct me if I'm wrong, like $400 million in revenue and, success stories. And
well, the economic impact is tremendous. We helped in one way, shape, or form over 1,800 companies in Illinois. That's a big number, but we're in a state with 12,000 manufacturers, and we know we need to get in there and help more of them. The average sales number that was either increased or retained was over $1 million. I think like $1.4 million. The cost savings were phenomenal. Client reported impact. And we have this goes back to the parent, MEP. They conduct a survey, so it's not us with our thumb on the scale.
right.
Client reported impact in terms of ROI is 19 to 1. 19 to 1. So we know what good looks like. We know how to get there, and we're not afraid to let you measure it. So
Exactly.
That's what we do, which is awesome to be part of. What a great story to tell. So.
Oh, well, yeah. And I think the other thing that you mentioned that I think is incredibly important to someone listening to this is that a lot of times you want to look for help, but you're not sure where to look, and you're not sure who you can trust. Yeah. And I think that's one thing I can say wholeheartedly, because I've worked with, Joe in Nebraska and Megan and in Utah, Alyssa in Alaska, you and Dave there in Illinois.
Yeah.
You guys are all genuine, very genuine. And it's definitely, you're of service first.
Yeah.
You're not trying to sell anybody anything that they don't need. And I know a lot of manufacturers will say, I'm going to call them up. They're what are they? Bureaucrats. It's a government office. They don't know what I'm going through. And that's why I wanted to share your story, because that's not true. Yeah. You've walked a mile in their shoes. And the other thing that I think is real important to mention too, is that in all the MEPs that I'm familiar with, and especially IMEC, this heart for service starts at the top.
No question.
Dave Boulay is an amazing leader for IMEC. And I can't say this enough, that I think that's, you guys are really doing it right, because it starts from the top down. And I always say, like, marketing, for example, starts from the inside out.
Yeah.
And I think it's that heart for service based on your experiences. Yeah. And like you said, if you don't have the answer for them, a guy, right? You can get them help.
Exactly.
So it's, it's just, it's almost a no-brainer, but I think it's just getting people to be aware that this exists.
Part of the cool thing is, there are companies we work with where maybe it is a point solution. We come in and do one thing. Our hope is that we do that one thing very well, and when something else comes up, we get invited back. The beauty of working with, I think IMEC in particular, MEPs in general, is that you've got access. The people you're engaging with, your regional manager, the point person, they're the same, whether you're working on a strategic planning initiative, lean Kaizen events, marketing, e-commerce or something like that. Your point people and project management stays the same. So you're not retraining every time you've got something new. Yeah, we may bring in a different discipline to help solve the problem, but the person on point talking to the president, the owner, the CEO, whoever it happens to be, is the same person that came in the first time. So, that's pretty unusual. You don't have to retrain us. So.
Right, exactly. And you already speak their language.
Yeah,
it
helps.
It's not, there's no hand holding required or, well, let me explain my operation to you. That's not happening. So
let's go walk the floor and talk factory. Yeah.
So the results can be rather swift in many cases. And I want to be mindful of our time because we're going to wrap up here shortly.
Cool.
Really quick.
Mm-hmm.
What is your favorite thing about manufacturing? Or one of your favorite things?
Oh, man. I'm still in awe of the whole converting raw materials, whether it's a block of steel, a sheet of plastic, some pellets, or whatever it is, or components on a PCB. I'm still in awe of converting it into something of higher value, getting it to that next level, and then combining it further, and then all of those steps. That to me is just still the coolest. I'm still a kid in a candy store when I see that. And I don't care what the business is, whether it's, food manufacturing or forging. To me, it's all fascinating, stuff. So that to me is the imagination that is behind that and the creativity. It's just, to this day, I still get excited about it.
I love that. Good answer.
Thanks.
And what is one thing, because I think we can all learn from each other. What's one thing you want to learn this year?
Oh, that's a good question. What do I want to learn this year? I want to learn the language necessary and the motivation to be able to help close those last miles. My role is working with our partners, which are, and I've got a partner in my there's two of us doing this role. My pal Josh Grodson, who's joined us. We work with economic development groups, township groups. There's so many different organizations that are out there doing good work to the benefit of. And if I can take anything I've learned in manufacturing to be that bridge, I hope I can learn to transfer those skills that I've acquired in a factory and be able to apply it in the ecosystem so that manufacturers can benefit. We'll circle back to the very beginning. There are so many resources available. Yeah. I want to make it easier for them to connect.
I love it. I love it. Well, we're going to have many episodes more together because there are lots of things to cover. Yeah. Thank you, my friend. You are the unicorn.
Oh, my pleasure.
For anybody listening, if you're not already connected with Ray Ziganto, that's Ziganto, please look him up on LinkedIn.
Yep.
He is somebody that you need to know. And Ray, I think it would be fitting to close this out with how we used to close out every episode of the old podcast, because I think it's incredibly relevant. So we want to tell everybody, keep manufacturing out loud.
Because
we
need you. Absolutely. Thank you, my friend.
Until next time.
If you're not already, subscribe to the Manufacturing Masters podcast on Apple Music or Spotify. And for a deeper dive, head on over to manufacturing-masters.com. It's everything they never taught you in school.